There's been a bit of a lull as far as the big brands go these last few months. You'd think they'd be waiting to bring out all their banger watches for the holiday period because that's when they'll be making all the sales, but seemingly not this year. No, it's been quite a while since I've had some of these big brand bangers, but it's a good job we've got micro brands here to save the day. And in fact, this is the second Boderry in almost as many weeks. Yeah, the last one I bought with my own money, Boderry wanted to send this one in, but they were released almost back to back. This is their most recent model, so let's take a look at it, see if it's as good as the last one. I'll link this watch in the video description. I'm not sure what versions they've sent me, but I guess we'll find out. Aha! 2 watches and... oh, 2 bracelets as well, I'm guessing, for those watches. Now, in here should be a sequel to Boderry's most popular watch. When Boderry originally launched, they had a watch that looked strikingly similar to a Bertucci field watch, but it was called the, I think it was the Voyager, and it had these insane specs. But they've made some changes, apparently, so let's take a look. Now, I'm a bit more used to this crazy packaging this time. It's pretty cool, really, shipping container. Let's see, what have we got inside? So we've got a green one. And what's the other one? Let's have a look. Oh, that one's much nicer. This one's like a white silver. I'll give you a close-up in a moment. Oh, and if you want to see more of the latest watch releases on camera, feel free to subscribe to this channel because that's what this channel's all about. On In the Loop, I try and give you a good close-up view on video of the newer releases because the pictures often don't tell the full story. And here we have it, the Boderry Voyager 38. And it's this new version with the sub-dial there, and then also this unusual triple date wheel in the bottom right corner. That's one of the first times I've ever seen like a triple spread date wheel like that. Not sure exactly what you'd call it, but it's certainly unique. But I have to say, I think at least the watch on the left is actually quite good looking. Not really feeling the green in person, to be honest. Looks a little bit flat, dull, boring maybe. But the cases on both are better than I expected. Now, I mean, online, these look like a one-to-one clone of a Bertucci, as I said. But in person, they are definitely slightly different. Bit thinner, more angular lugs there, and just feels more delicate. It's got the Omega-inspired twisting lugs there, but it does look quite different from the side than any sort of Omega I've seen. Obviously, you got to kind of get past that name first, but I quite like this one. And the strap as well, I've got to say, I don't think I've ever seen this almost tuxedo-like strap before. This single pass in this color combination, it actually looks fantastic. It's not one I've ever really considered before, but definitely suits the look. This other one looks just a lot more dated, mid-century maybe. Not feeling that one as much. This one looks great though. Oh, and also this one on the right is a 2-pass NATO, whereas the one on the left is just a single pass fabric strap. Now, unlike the original version of this watch, this one is also quartz, which is why I'm guessing it's so thin, because it certainly looks thin. It's got a Ronda 6004D inside. Atop it is sapphire crystal. The case is titanium as well. That's why it's got that matte finish. I would hazard a guess that is just the standard grade 2 titanium, which is more like the entry-level titanium stuff without a treatment, I would believe. Although, again, it does look a little bit darker maybe than some of the other titanium watches. Not quite to gunmetal, but it's certainly getting there. Let's take a look at the proportions and have a look on wrist. But first, I'll give you a close-up of the dial on each of these. Now, this one, kind of white, but it's also almost silver. It has a very slight sunburst to it, which looks pretty good, actually. Orange loom in the hands there. But I quite like the font choice, the typeface they've used for all the numbers. I think it looks quite good. And it's an unusual choice to have a Swiss movement inside a Chinese watch. But there you go. It's only... what is it currently? $97? Yeah, $97 on the Boderry site at the time of recording this, at least. It's also got 100 meters of water resistance. It's got... oh, how unusual. It has a displayed case back. I mean, not sure why you'd particularly want to see a quartz movement. I mean, as far as quartz movements go, it's one of the least ugly I've seen, I have to say. It's got like a big gold plating over it. But yeah, I wouldn't be spending a lot of time looking in that myself. That's quite an unusual choice. I was just more focused on the water resistance, but that was hiding away there. Yeah, 10 bar looks like it would survive well underwater. It's also got a screw down crown, which I set the hands with just before. It feels Really smooth, actually, really smooth. Much better than on some of the other Boderry watches, especially the automatics. This one's silky smooth. I think that's going to wear well. I'm interested to see what that looks like on wrist. And here's a close-up of the green model. As you can see, just looks a lot more subdued and simplistic to me, or at least it doesn't look as expensive as the other one. This looks much more like a budget watch. And also legibility isn't quite as good either because it's like a mid-green. Across the middle, 38.3 I've got it as there, but it really depends where you measure. If I was to measure kind of the bezel size of this, it's about 37.2. So actually a little bit smaller. Lug to lug might be longer though. Does look quite expansive. Approaching 48 mil, so the lug to lug is actually fairly long for a watch of this size. And the overall thickness of the case, it's got like a slightly recessed crystal, 9.8 millimeters, which is a bit thinner than it says on the website. And yeah, you can see just like the Bertucci watch, it has that recessed crystal to protect the side of it. Now this one says it's sapphire as well, which I will test right now. Here's the Christopher Ward C63 Sealander. You can see we can get a nice positive reading because it's sapphire. And we should get something similar from this Boderry. And we do. Not quite as many bars, but it is still almost certainly sapphire there. So here's a look at it on my 6 1/4 inch wrist. Now I've got a pretty small wrist as far as men's arms go, but I have to say this wears significantly better than expected. With that sort of lug-to-lug size, that's usually a no-go for me, or at least it's pushing the boundaries of what I can get away with. But because of the curvature, it sits quite flush, it goes down at quite a steep angle. There's really not much excess space under the lugs with this watch, which is nice. And for the money, I don't think that looks bad at all. I think, what, $97 US is probably about £80 at the moment. And it definitely looks good for that amount of money, or at least this colour does. The strap really looks decent, but we'll try it with the bracelet in a moment. And the weird date window actually isn't as distracting as I thought it would be, at least not with this colour. And there's a closer look at it on the arm. It's really good. Really nice shape, actually. And there is the green model. Still feel exactly the same about this one. I don't think there's ever a way I would wear this with the other colour hanging around, but it's not awful. I'll have to test the lume on this watch as well because it looks like there's luminescence across a lot of that dial. And I think maybe the previous watch gets away with the triple date wheel more because it's already white anyway. Now when they wanted to send me these watches, I told them they should ship me one of these bracelets as well so we can work out if it's worth going for the bracelet or if it's worth sticking with the strap. Now, I mean, with this one, the strap's so nice, I'd be tempted to stick with that. It's not the best quality in the world, but it looks good. I mean, from first impressions here, this looks quite similar to the bracelet that ships with the previous watch I looked at from Boderry. The Landmaster, that was it, but just with different end links potentially here. No, it is slightly different. It has like a faceted central link. In some ways, the kind of structure and shape of it reminds me of the Casio Oceanus bracelet, actually, which is a pretty decent bracelet outside of a bad class. Now, this one's all matte, but it has that same like angular structure down the middle. I think it looks really good. This looks better than the one that came with the Landmaster, I'd say. And again, it's got a little quick release, like a double quick release bar there, so you can squeeze it and size it semi-quickly. So we'll give that a shot, eh? I'll be intrigued to see how well integrated this ends up being because these lugs are an unusual shape, and also how easily they scratch, because that's often a thing with bracelets like this. You can often end up scratching. How unusual. So I've just been fiddling with this off camera just to get the bracelet in, and I'm not sure you can see this, but it's a double hold lug. Now, I've looked at hundreds of watches over the years. This is the first time I've seen a double hold lug, and I'm assuming this is so that you can use one hole for pass-through straps so that the strap doesn't have to come up and over a really high angle, and then the other one is used for the bracelet. I think I keep getting the bracelet stuck in the strap hole, so I'll try and get the right one. Okay, so after a bit of wrestling, we're in, and yeah, it looks reasonably decent actually. The integration isn't awful. The bracelet's maybe a tiny bit lighter than the case, but not bad at all. I think very viable there. I should really have fitted it to the other watch, but we can at least see if it makes it look smaller on the wrist. It's always a little hard to tell with these titanium watches because they're quite dull cased, but I'd say If anything, maybe it makes it look a tiny bit bigger. Perhaps because it's using that different hole and because it's got these male end links, it just extends out a fraction further, perhaps. I mean, there isn't much in it, and you could probably get away with either depending on your wrist size. Let me know what you think. Do you think it looked better on the strap or on the bracelet? I think either are viable, to be honest. And 3 micro adjusts are fairly decent as well. But I'm keen to test the luminescence of this thing. And maybe we'll see 2 different colours. So the green one does have the advantage of having loomed markers, whereas the white one only has the pips around the edge. Maybe it's a different colour as well. It's definitely a different tone of green to the naked eye, at least. The camera makes them look much more similar. But for the money, the performance is decent. For Casio rivaling prices, the Lumiere is definitely better than most Casios, no doubt. I mean, the white one isn't going to be hard to see in low light because it's white, but in pitch black, it's definitely going to be less of a quick reader. So overall, my first impressions of this new Boderry, pretty good actually, especially this one on the left. And I took a quick look just then at some of the other colours on this site, and there are some others that look as good as this one as well, I would say. So yeah, that's 2 out of 2 for the most recent Boderrys at least, so they seem to be on a bit of a hot streak. I'll affiliate link them in a video description if you want to check them out. I think this left one might make the rotation to some degree. I do have a lot of field watches, as you can gather from having a small wrist. They tend to fit the best, but yeah, this definitely has a slightly different look. Don't think it's a copy of anything. Let me know what you think in the comments section.